Good morning. In today's video comment, I would like to talk about Polish Suppression of Unfair Competition Act. Competition may be described as an economic activity by two or more enterprises operating on the same market. The general legal act in Poland on unfair competition is the Suppression of Unfair Competition Act. It seeks to protect customers, enterprises and public interests by regulating anti-competitive behavior. An act of unfair competition according to Article 3 of the Act is an act violating law or good practice if an economic activity threatens or infringes other enterprises' interests. Article 3, Section 2 of the Act provides a list of acts of unfair competition. One of the acts of unfair competition is defined in Article 5 of the Act. It is any designation of an enterprise that might mislead customers as to its identity through use of, for example, a business name or logo or other characteristic symbol that has been previously used by another enterprise already operating on the market. Entrepreneurs need to find a way to attract new customers. Geographical or regional labeling of products is one of the most important ways to distinguish one product from another. Therefore, labeling goods or services with false or fraudulent geographical or regional indication is considered to be an act of unfair competition. Furthermore, designation of products that might mislead customers as to the origin, quality or quantity is also considered to be an act of unfair competition. The Act also protects business secrets, which is any undisclosed information of economic value. Violation may include communication, disclosure or use of confidential information that will threaten entrepreneurs' business. Another example of an act of unfair competition is imitation of a product by copying its external characteristics because it may mislead customers as to the indication of the origin of the product. However, copying the construction, design or form required for the usefulness of a product is allowed. It is therefore allowed to copy all the elements of the product except for its external appearance. It should be underlined that the mentioned acts of unfair competition do not constitute an exhaustive list. If an act is not specified in the provisions of the Act of Suppression of Unfair Competition, but meets the requirements for an act of unfair competition, it might be treated as one. An entrepreneur whose interests have been threatened or infringed by an act of unfair competition may seek remedying the damages caused. An act of unfair competition may therefore trigger civil liability. It seems that the most important issue to request will be cessation of impermissible act, because prolonged infringement may cause irreversible effects on the entrepreneur's business. Regulations have also preventive effect. That means that the intent of breaching of one of the provisions of the Act is enough to trigger civil liability. However, if bringing a claim turns out to be groundless, the claimant will have to cover the cost of the proceedings and potential damages of the defendant. Unfair entrepreneur may also face criminal liability, which strengthens victim's position with regard to the substantial damage to his enterprise. The liability is differential, as some acts of unfair competition will constitute an offence handled by the police and other crimes handled by prosecution, both pursued at the request of the victim. However, criminal liability does not apply to all acts of unfair competition, but only to some provided in the Act, such as disclosing business secrets or dissemination of untrue or misleading information, if it causes substantial damage to the enterprise. Depending on the offence committed, a person may be liable to a fine, restriction of liberty or deprivation of liberty of up to 8 years. To conclude, an act of unfair competition is an act violating law or good practice if it threatens or infringes interests of another enterprise or customers. An act that is not specified in the provisions of the Act may be treated as an act of unfair competition if it fits the mentioned definition. An entrepreneur whose interests have been threatened or infringed may use different options provided by the Act to protect his rights or interests. Thank you for listening to today's video comment on Polish Act on Suppression of Unfair Competition. I cordially invite you to watch other video comments on our portal.